Another 49ers update from New York City. This one from the ground floor of the Oculus at the World Trade Center. Brant Boyer is the new special teams coordinator. I did the live from the ledge over there. This time you have a different angle, slightly different topic. We're going to be more broad ranging here. Yes, the 49ers have signed Brant Boyer to be the special teams coordinator, but we also have to talk about the Super Bowl. Last year's Super Bowl as well. I mean, you talk about Brock Purdy going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. Well, 49ers have their guy. They're going to pay him this offseason. It's one of the takeaways from what has happened this postseason. That's only been solidified, I think, in the minds of the public. But we've got to react to what happened in that game between the Bills and the Eagles and spin it forward to what the 49ers are thinking moving forward. So I did join KMBR this morning back on the West Coast. Took that interview. Here is my conversation with them about the 49ers and their moves, including the Brant Boyer move, which broke right during the interview. But here is the conversation about the 49ers and their moves relative to what has happened around the rest of the league during these playoffs.
Yeah, we did a little tour of all four teams' bars yesterday in New York, and that was really neat. But then we decided, hey, we've just got to because they're so crowded, right? All these bars, because everybody's consolidating all the fans onto their team bars. So we said, we got to get a spot at the Bills bar because this is going to be crazy. And it was. Now, San Francisco's got a really good one, North Star Cafe. Up in North Beach, but this one in Buffalo, in New York, because it's actually, the Bills are New York's only team, right? The Giants and the Jets are in New Jersey, and they make the Bills fans make sure that they're New York's only team. So we're closer to Buffalo here, and they just packed this place out, multiple levels. It was wild, and then they lost. But I mean, if 49ers fans think that they've seen heartbreak over the past 30 years, I think Buffalo says, hold my beer. Because, I mean, they've got all these tough defeats, right? The 13-second game, and then what happened last night, but that's on the heels of 4 straight Super Bowl losses. So 49ers fans actually have it really good in comparison to that, because, man, it'd be tough to wake up today as a Buffalo fan.
Yeah, we're talking to David Lombardi in New York after the Bills, and it's true. I mean, we just talked about Mahomes. Allen being 0-4 against Mahomes. Well, 0-4 is a familiar number in Buffalo because that's what Marv Levy and Jim Gilly were. So, my God, Buffalo. Wow. Just quickly on that game, a couple of things just for you as an NFL beat writer. What jumped out to you more? Is it the controversy of the spot and how the NFL has to clean that up, or how Allen had the ball in his hands, down 3.5 minutes ago, and just for one reason or another couldn't get it done?
Well, the fourth down play was crazy because that was Steve Spagnuolo, who's clutch as hell, showing up again with a really well-timed blitz that confused Josh Allen. And he made the tougher play, right? It was exponentially tougher than some of the other reads there. You can't blame him, though, because Spagnuolo does that to everybody, but he still delivered the ball to where it needed to be, and Dalton Kincaid just couldn't catch it. So I think that the game came down to several things, but if there's one duality that stuck in my head, was that Xavier Worthy made the very disputed contested catch. I'm sure that was a catch because it seemed to me that they were both still wrestling for it when the ball hit the ground and seemed to move. But the Chiefs made their miracle catch, and Dalton Kincaid dropped what would have been a miracle completion from Josh Allen there at the end. But unfortunately, NFL has a problem on its hands because the lasting image, and if you just look at social media and see what most people are talking about, I think the lasting image from that game is the fourth down play on the quarterback sneak where the officials are running in at different spots. One has Allen with the first down, one didn't have Allen with the first down. They obviously chose the spot of the official that didn't have him with the first down, and it came the play after Kincaid looked to have a first down as well. And the timing of that controversial sequence was what stood out to me, because Buffalo took over this football game on the ground in the third quarter. 15 carries for 84 yards or 86 yards. Like, basically, if you extrapolated that over the full game, that would have been like 60 carries for 344 yards. And I mean, they didn't even have to pass in the third quarter, but as soon as the fourth quarter started is when their drive hit a wall with that third and fourth down sequence. And I mean, normally when you see a team dominate the way that the Bills did on the ground in the third quarter, they run away with the game. Because of that third and fourth down sequence, the dominance ended and the Chiefs took back over. So no matter which way you look at this, Buffalo's just got to be sick waking up this morning.
Yeah, and it leads to Kansas City winning their record-setting 17th straight one-possession game. And now Patrick Mahomes has a career record in the postseason of 17-3. That moves him ahead of Joe Montana for the second most postseason wins in NFL history. I mean, this guy's only 29 years old, but do you think with the opportunity to go out and win his fourth Super Bowl that he's already ahead of Joe Montana on the all-time list?
Well, I think you've got to win more Super Bowls to be ahead of Joe Montana on the all-time list. So he's not there yet. He's not a Brady yet, but it has been a hell of a start for Patrick Mahomes, and it's going to be really interesting against the Eagles because, like I just said, the Bills were able to run it down Kansas City's throat in the third quarter in a way that, for example, the 49ers, Purdy, the 49ers, they took the Chiefs toe-to-toe the year before, maybe even further into overtime, but they didn't run the ball effectively in that game. San Francisco in Super Bowl 58 only had 3.5 yards per carry. They didn't do what Buffalo was able to do in the third quarter yesterday. I mean, and that is just absolutely dominate on the ground. And if there's a team that can dominate on the ground this season, it's Philadelphia. It's going to be Saquon Barkley's 28th birthday on the day of the Super Bowl on February 9th. So I'm really, really intrigued about this matchup coming up in 2 weeks. I know a lot of people don't want to watch, but I want to watch just to see Steve Spagnuolo against Saquon Barkley and that Eagles offense, which ran at will yesterday against Washington.
Good stuff. David Lombardi, the SF Standard. You are listening to KMBR AM and KMBR FM, San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. And a year from now, the 49ers hope to be playing at home at Levi's Stadium as the Super Bowl will be in Santa Clara next year. Okay, so Robert Saleh, man, we talked about it, and it's like we say landing a big fish. It's almost like an analogy almost holds when you're going deep sea fishing and they fight the fish for hours and hours and hours and then finally get it on board because this was a close call, David. But again, in the end, like they say, don't talk about the labor pains, just show me the baby, right? They got their man. What was your analysis of the entire pursuit of Saleh? Was it unnecessarily risky, and were they that close to coming up empty? And in the end, is it a home run?
Well, this ties into the Super Bowl too, specifically the Eagles, because the 49ers effectively broke the Eagles in 2023, but look how Philadelphia has bounced back. I think they offer a blueprint for the 49ers to bounce back in 2025. And what Philly had to do was fix a defense that just ruptured, just broke at the end of 2023. Same thing happened to the 49ers. And they did that by changing coordinators. Philly also added a star running back, a soon to be 28-year-old running back in Saquon Barkley, who totally transformed the offense. The 49ers are going to add a 28-year-old running back next season in Christian McCaffrey, who barely played last year. But looking at the coordinator thing, Philly added Vic Fangio. 49ers added I guess they had Vic Fangio in the past, but this era's Vic Fangio, Robert Saleh. And I think they needed to hit this correctly. And from the very start, even going back to when Robert Saleh was fired from the Jets, there was talk that Saleh would be perfect for the 49ers because he takes their successful build from 2017 to 2020, but he also adds the experience that they need to be adaptable as a defense. I mean, just go back and look at what Steve Spagnuolo is doing late in these games. It happens consistently. He is able to tailor his calls based on what's happened over the first 45, 50 minutes of the game, and then he delivers with a couple of those surgical strikes on those critical downs late to win the game. And the NFL comes down to plays like that, comes down to calls like that. The 49ers weren't getting those with Nick Swanson. They weren't getting those early on with DeMeco Ryans in 2021. First half of the season took him a while to grow on the job, but then DeMeco started hitting on those blitzes, started hitting on the coverage calls. So with Saleh, he can hit from the get-go. Now they've got to restock the defense, just like Philly restocked the defense. So there's so many open roster spots right now. They only have 3 linebackers and 3 cornerbacks under contract. That's all going to be important. So is Saleh's staff. I'm wondering, does Joe Woods rejoin this staff? The former DC of the Browns and the Saints, who was with the DB coach of the 49ers in 2019. He's a key component of the historic success they had that year because they were mixing up coverages. It wasn't just the Seattle style cover 3. They're running a lot of quarters with Joe Woods. So how does Saleh build this out so that the 49ers stay or get back ahead of the curve?
Do you think either the Eagles or the Chiefs have also laid out the blueprint of how to build a roster around a high-paid quarterback? Because it seems like there's a big discussion about whether or not the 49ers can pay Brock Purdy $50+ million, but still have other all-pro players around him. You look at Jalen Hurts, who's making around $51 million a year, Patrick Mahomes, $45+ million. Do you think they laid the blueprint of how to build a roster around those quarterbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most overblown narrative ever. You have to be smart building your roster at the margins. And if you do that, then you're going to have enough money, especially if you know how to structure contracts. I projected a contract for Brock Purdy worth $61 million annually, if that's what it ends up taking, if that's what he wants in negotiations. And the 49ers have to cave to that. And the APY, they can keep a $61 million annual average value contract at about a $15 million cap hit in year one. And the way that the salary cap is growing in the NFL, you can surf the wave of a rising salary cap. The 49ers have given out more big contracts than any other team since 2017, since Lynch and Shanahan took over. And they have enough room to get this done. It's about structuring it correctly and then making sure that you're not wasting money on the back end. But you can pay your A-listers, and based on what we've seen these playoffs combined with the last two playoff runs, I think Brock Purdy definitely qualifies as an A-lister.
As we transition, David, the last few minutes here, we're talking to David Lombardi, the SF Standard, who was out in New York watching the playoff games in a Bills bar, tragedy in Bills land. But as we transition sort of towards the 49er offseason, away from Saleh, towards salary cap and free agency. So that said, they can't sign everybody. Not everybody. Every team can't sign everybody. So I'm going to throw just a couple of defensive names at you, and you tell me the likelihood of these guys returning, given the idea of Brock Purdy getting his new contract. One is D-tackle Javon Hargrave, another is safety Talanoa Hufanga, and another is corner Charvarius Ward. Now, I guess according to, of those three, I think Lynch told Ward, I read that Lynch told Ward, I don't think we can afford you. I don't know about Hufanga, and I don't know about Hargrave. Those three guys, David, how does that fit into the salary cap hell?
Hargrave is just like Eric Armstead last year, except the situation is developing in slow motion. They let him know earlier because he was hurt, and it didn't look like they were going to make the playoffs. So they ended up releasing Armstead with a post-first designation after he said, I'm not accepting your proposal of a pay cut, which was like $18 million down to $6 million. With Hargrave, he was at about, $21 million. And they said post-June 1st designation, the money is not guaranteed, but they said, we're interested in bringing you back, but we're just going to let you go talk to other teams. If they can get him from like 5 to 7 million, maybe even up to 10, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the budget for him is. Then they'll happily say, come back aboard. But if somebody's willing to pay him more, like Jacksonville was willing to pay Armstead $14 million last year, the 49ers won't go there. So we'll just have to see the market. Charvarius Ward is complicated. Lynch and the 49ers brass told that to Charvarius and this past season. Obviously, the season didn't go well for him, but there was personal tragedy off the field. It very understandably was a very difficult time for Charvarius Ward. And throwing another wrench into that, he openly said that he has PTSD in the Bay Area because that's where his 23-month-old daughter, Amani Joy, passed away this year. His wife, or his girlfriend, Monique, doesn't even want to be in the Bay Area or live there. So this past year, Charvarius was alone, just going home after work, just really gut-wrenching stuff. So, when you add that whole personal dynamic into it, I think you have to say that based on what he was saying, it's unlikely that he'll be re-signing with the 49ers. And then I think you mentioned, did you say Hufanga and Greenlaw?
Yeah, Hufanga. No, I just did Hufanga. We know they want Greenlaw for sure, but Hufanga, Hargrave, and Ward were the three I brought up. So Hufanga, I'm not sure what to make of the Hufanga situation.
Yeah, I think, both Hufanga and Greenlaw did not check all the boxes, or theoretically did not check all the boxes to get a big long-term deal elsewhere, just because they were both coming off of injuries. And, the boxes you have to check are explosiveness and durability. And Greenlaw obviously showed explosiveness, and that was really impressive, but he only played 34 snaps. And Hufanga looked really good when he first came back, but I don't think he was quite healthy. He was still coming back from the torn wrist ligament, which was on the heels of the ACL. So he wasn't himself, right? He wasn't fully back to his all-pro self in 2022. And sometimes when those factors are at play, a prove-it deal to return to your original team, a 1-year deal, I don't know, a few $1 million more than the veteran minimum, but not something that's like a big long-term contract, that can be the best opportunity on the table. And if that's the case, I think the 49ers can bring back both Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. Maybe it will be the case for one of them, maybe for none of them. I don't know. We'll see what the market is. I think a lot of this stuff and the talks around these things start picking up around the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, because that's when the executives and the agents are all in the same place.
David, last one is, while we were talking, the Niners just sent out a news alert. They did hire a new special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer, former NFL linebacker, played for the Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville, and Cleveland from 94 to 03, and apparently the Jets special teams coordinator since 2016 through 3 different coaching regimes. So I don't know, in your reporting, what you knew about Brant Boyer's candidacy?
Well, Brant Boyer had been with the Jets since 2016, so he predated Robert Saleh with the Jets. Obviously a good coordinator to be able to stick around through multiple coaching staffs. The couple top 3 finishes in special teams for the Jets in that time. I read up a little bit about him over the course of the past few days, because I felt that since his interview came right after we found out that Saleh was very likely to be the defensive coordinator, it seemed that maybe Saleh recommended him to the 49ers, and obviously they hold Saleh in extremely high regard. So just reading the tea leaves, he felt like the favorite. Turns out that he was the favorite. He got the job. So as I was reading about him, I saw that he's bought a place or is building a place out in Montana, big outdoors guy, special teams coordinator, football guy, former linebacker, and has delivered results before. But I'll say what I have said over and over about the special teams job. Brian Schneider was considered a really good coordinator before he came to the 49ers. Mm-hmm. He had a 10-year run in Seattle that was highly successful. I mean, the 49ers played those Seahawks and seemed to always get victimized on special teams. So to me, the coordinator can be really good, but if the top-down focus is not there on special teams, I'm not just talking about signing guys, I'm talking about in-game focus isn't there on special teams. Shanahan has to be thinking special teams needs to win us games instead of saying special teams just needs to not screw it up. They haven't called a fake punt in all of Shanahan here. When's the last time that we saw the 49ers do something out of the box creative on special teams? The one fake punt they ran was an improv play from Mitch Wishnowski. So I think that focus has to change for the 49ers, because I think subconsciously special teams responds. Bill Belichick teams always excelled in that phase of the game because he was obsessed with special teams. So you've got to project that energy from the top down. But you do have a good coordinator. I just think that the coach has to be as invested as the coordinator.
Mm-hmm. David, I've got one more last question on Robert Saleh before we let you go. Do you have any idea what that contract could potentially look like, or any details of when that information will be released?
I don't know if they'll ever release it. We'll see. But we typically don't see like coaching contracts up on over the cap. I'm sure some small details will hit the media. The rumor had been that they had offered him top level coordinator money, but then you also wonder, because he had been with the Jets and there was still time on his contract with the Jets, and typically these things have offset language in them, so that could end up being complicated. But I would think that we get something within the next couple of weeks, but I wouldn't expect as much disclosure as we do with player contracts, where we get every single line of the deal thanks to the NFLPA.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I'm asking is because there's been a lot of texts and comments that we've had on the show today asking about the length of the contract potentially for Robert Saleh, and if there's any concern about maybe him leaving and getting back into the head coaching cycle after this next season.
I don't think it's a concern. I think that's something that you want to happen. If you talk to Bill Walsh back in the day, that's something that he actively wanted to happen, because that's what does happen. That means a really successful year. And Robert Saleh goes out and delivers an elite defense for the 49ers this season. Injury permitting on offense. So, we've seen Purdy get hurt before, but he's a good enough quarterback to take the 49ers to the Super Bowl and win it if they have an elite defense. And at that point, the last thing you're thinking about is worrying about if Robert Saleh is going to take a head coaching job or not. So Walsh always, he called it the spirit of abundance. He talked to Steve Young about it. He He always speaks so articulately about it, but you foster an ambitious organization and one that is constantly reaching for excellence if you encourage all of your employees to be taking it forward at all times. You're never worried about a guy leaving for a promotion. So that's what 49ers are right now. They're thinking about this year, and then you work on whatever's after that. And if it's the aftermath of big time success, then you're totally okay with it.
Yep, they got their guy, and they want him right now. So, David, thanks for the extended conversation. Enjoy the heck out of your trip, and we'll catch you down the road.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Yep.
There he
Thanks,
is.
guys. Appreciate it.